videos and audios, and we'll be starting with the orientation and going live in just a couple of moments. Good morning, everybody. Namaste, and a very warm welcome to all of you to the orientation session of the World Teen Parliament. Thank you so much for joining in. We'll be starting with the orientation session just in a couple of moments. But before we start, I have a small little question for all of you, and I want you to answer the question in the YouTube chat. The question is very simple. Do you want to be successful? And if you think that you want to be successful, what's the way forward for it? Try giving me some innovative answers of this question, that if you want to be successful, what do you think is the way ahead? And what is that one thing that you need to learn to become successful in your life? A very warm welcome, everybody. We'll be starting with the orientation session of the World Teen Parliament just in a couple of moments. Stay tuned in and subscribe to the YouTube channel of Blub World to keep getting all the updates about the World Teen Parliament so that you know how to participate and what's going on at the Teen Parliament. So I've started getting some answers for the question that I've just put to you. One of the answers is setting goals and working hard. Again, you have to be innovative, discipline, and loyalty. Some people say it's through education that you can be successful. Okay, focusing on your goal, hardworking. Okay. Okay, so innovation, hardworking. Good, good. A lot of nice, amazing answers. So what we think that you need to know or learn if you really want to be successful in life is problem solving. If you can solve a problem, if you have the skill set, the understanding, the knowledge, the intellect to solve a problem, that is what makes you successful. Try creating a list of people around you whom you think are successful and try understanding from them that what do they exactly do. And when you delve deep into their daily work, you'll figure out that they're all solving problems. So if you're a problem solver, you become more and more successful in your life. The bigger a problem you solve, the more successful you are. Every single morning, the vegetable vendor outside your society or outside your house is solving your problem of going to the vegetable market. And your internet service provider or your mobile service provider is every day solving your problem of getting connected to the world. So the bigger a problem you solve, the more successful you get in your life. So a very good morning to everybody and a very warm welcome to the orientation session of the World Teen Parliament. I am Daksh, the founder of Blub World. Let me give you a small little understanding of what exactly is Blub World. Blub World is a magazine that works for children, and we try to find inspiration in children. Every month, we try to find a teenager who's doing amazingly well in life and try to share their amazing stories with many more teens across the world. Around a year back, after working with so many teenagers, we thought that let's create an organization that brings together the most dynamic, innovative, and amazing teenagers from across the globe who can solve problems and make the world a much better place to live in. And that's where the idea of the World Teen Parliament found its genesis. A parliament of the teens, by the teens, and for the world. A very warm welcome, everybody. We are very thankful to our valued partners, UNESCO's New Delhi Office, UNESCO Mahatma Gandhi Institute, and the Kindness Matters Initiative for helping the World Teen Parliament reach out to every single teenager across the world. As an idea, as a concept, or as a definition, the World Teen Parliament is a parliament of 100 teen MPs selected from all across the world who can solve local or global problems with their innovative ideas. Once you get selected, we'll be training you, we'll be mentoring you, and funding you so that you can realize your vision of a better world. For these 100 teens, we'll be screening nearly 100,000 plus teenagers across the globe and who will be voted to power by 300,000 plus schools, teachers, and parents. For a detailed understanding, you can go to our Blub World website and go to the World Teen Parliament page, and you'll find this video which explains the complete concept of the World Teen Parliament. You can even see this live session once it comes to an end, and you can share the link of this video with your friends, your family, anybody who wants to understand the World Teen Parliament in detail. To participate in the World Teen Parliament, you have to answer this question in a 59-second video, either in English or in Hindi. And you have to then follow the steps to participate. The question that you have to answer is, how will I improve the world? Remember, when you answer this question, keep yourself in the center of it. You must be giving a solution that you think you can implement or you can start, or at least you can inspire many more people with. Remember, the participation to the World Teen Parliament is absolutely free. Nobody has to pay anything to participate in the World Teen Parliament. Now let's go on to how would you exactly participate, or the steps to participate. The first step is to click on this Register Now button and fill the Google registration form to get the link of the WTP Facebook group in your mailbox and the instructions to post your video on Instagram. When you click on that button, this registration form will open up. You can typically look at all the questions here and try to answer the question, how will I improve the world, in text here as well before you put it on video. The second step, you have to post your 59-second video answer in the World Teen Parliament Facebook group or on Instagram from your parents or your school's account and tag Blub World and add the hashtags World Teen Parliament 2021 and WTP 2021 video entry. Step 3, you have to share your video with your friends and family to gather the maximum views, likes, and shares. The viral video participant with the most practical idea gets elected to participate in the live zonal parliament. The step 5 is that you speak at the zonal parliament and get the maximum live votes. And on the basis of these live votes, you will finally get elected among the top 100 teens to become a member of parliament of the World Teen Parliament. The first question that typically everyone asks us after this is, how do we have to post our video? So after registering for the World Teen Parliament, post your video entry either on Facebook or on Instagram from your parents or your school's account. Remember, you do not have to post the entry on both the platforms. Post it either on the Facebook group or on your Instagram page and tag Blub World in it. If you want to see what kind of videos our other students are posting, go to the World Teen Parliament Facebook group and you can see the kind of videos that students are creating and the kind of solutions that they are giving to local and to global problems, so that you can also be inspired to create such videos. When you want to see us on Instagram, go and search for Blub World, scroll down, go to the tagged section, and you'll find all these videos from children who are solving different problems that they think are important to the world and in the process of becoming the teen parliamentarians of the World Teen Parliament. Now, all the participants to the World Teen Parliament will get a certificate of participation. You will also get to attend free workshops on life skills, leadership, global governance, and policy making from global faculty. You'll get the opportunity to get your ideas funded. You'll get to meet and interact with global leaders. You'll also get to inspire children across the world with your ideas and solutions. You will also get to interact with teens globally in the World Teen Parliament community. Now, even if you don't become an MP, you still get to learn. You'll be attending free workshops on all the following topics to enhance your skill set and enhance your prospects of a better career and a much better future. You'll get to learn empathy, critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, and leadership. Today also, we have with us some amazing faculty who will be teaching you critical thinking, and you'll go through the complete workshop in the second half of this orientation session. Now, the biggest question that comes up is, who will get selected, or what's the selection criteria to the World Teen Parliament? So the selection to the World Teen Parliament depends on two factors. First, the solution and the plan that a teen gives for any local or global problem. Second, the support that you gather for your solution with social media views, likes, and shares. The practicality of your idea will be judged by a jury, and the popularity of your idea will be judged by the views, likes, and shares to your video entry. On the basis of these two things, you'll get selected to the World Teen Parliament. What will the MPs do? So once you become a member of parliament, what will you be doing? So you'll be talking to global leaders, you'll be inspiring teenagers, you'll be implementing the idea that you gave in the World Teen Parliament as a school project with your friends and your friends to make it a reality. And finally, you will plan and host the next World Teen Parliament, and we'll become a secretariat to you, or we'll help you in doing that. The participation rules. So all teenagers must participate and submit their video entry under strict parental control only. The eligibility for participation in the World Teen Parliament is you must be above 13 years of age and under 19 years of age, and you must either be a school student or a homeschooler. This activity is not open for college students and university students. The tenure of the World Teen Parliament. The tenure of the World Teen Parliament is 12 months or 1 year. Every year, each year, a new World Teen Parliament will be constituted. The total time commitment from an elected MP. So once you become an MP, so that your academics do not get impacted, the maximum time that you have to devote to the Teen Parliament is 21 days out of the whole year. To read our rules in detail, click on this button and then you can read all the rules and regulations of the World Teen Parliament in detail. The important dates. So the registrations for the World Teen Parliament have started from 15th of April. So they are open, so you can do registrations right now. Send in your entries, send in your solutions, send in your ideas. From April to the months of December, we'll be doing, and which we are doing right now, we are doing a lot of future skilling sessions that you can attend. All the participants or the registration, the people who do their registration in the World Teen Parliament can attend these workshops. The last date to upload your video entries is 15th of December 2021 till 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time. And from 17th of January 2022, the zonal parliaments will start, and we'll establish the World Teen Parliament on 22nd of January 2022. And from that year onwards, from 22nd of January 2022 till the next year, 2023, this Teen Parliament will be working the complete year. There is a section for FAQs, or frequently asked questions. You can click on this button and see answers to some of the questions that you might have about the Teen Parliament, so that the concept is more clear to you and you're able to participate in the complete process. So now, if you have any questions, you can start putting your questions and I'll try to answer them if you have anything about the complete process or participation process of the World Teen Parliament. There are amazing opportunities for school leaders whom we are inviting as school ambassadors. And you can also scroll down and see our advisors, the different people who are people from amazing organizations who are helping us create the World Teen Parliament. And we are very, very thankful to all our supporters: Common Sense Holding South Africa, Do the Gap Spain, Go Bubble School UK, Kidzania India, Metamorphosis School of Entrepreneurship, Rishi Hood University, and Sai University for helping and supporting the World Teen Parliament. If you're not able to ask your questions right now and you still have any more questions that you want to put through, you can fill in this contact us form and we'll try to get back to you and answer all your queries related to the World Teen Parliament. So everyone, thank you so much for listening to this session on the orientation session of the World Teen Parliament. Now we have with us some amazing people who will be sharing one amazing skill with all of you today. A very warm welcome to Dr. Siddhart S, the Assistant Professor of Philosophy at Sai University from Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. So Dr. Siddhart will be talking to you about critical thinking. So today is your workshop on critical thinking, where you'll try to understand how does the idea of critical thinking transcend into the World Teen Parliament, and how would this help you in your future or your career. So it's going to be an interactive session. If you want to ask anything, if you have any questions, you can keep posting them in the YouTube chat. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible. So before we move on to answering your questions, I think I should answer at least one or two questions, and then we should go to our amazing faculty for the critical thinking workshop. So one of the questions that has come up is, what will happen if our idea is good but we don't have enough likes? So if your idea is good and if you don't get enough likes, the school ambassador from your region can nominate you to the next level in the selection process of the World Teen Parliament. So you can connect with your school principal, your teachers, to help you understand that and try to get yourself nominated to the next level. But before that, try your best to get the maximum likes and shares. Okay, so the next question is again related to that if you have more followers, there are more chances that you'll become a parliamentarian. And yes, it is true, because it's a parliament, it's not a simple competition. So you will have to know the importance of getting people together or understanding exactly how collaboration works. So will I get a certificate? Yes, you will be getting a certificate. And I think then we are getting redundant questions on age. So remember, if you are not 13 years old on 15th of September 2021, you cannot participate in the World Teen Parliament. To participate, you have to be 13 years old on 15th of September and under 19 years of age on 15th of September. Okay, so what's the motto of the World Teen Parliament? So the motto of the World Teen Parliament is to typically make teenagers into problem solvers, amazing human beings who believe in themselves, who believe in self-driven growth, who think that they can change the world with their ideas, their initiatives, their energy, and their positivity. And that's why this parliament is not just a debating platform, it's an investment platform. So if you have an idea, we'll support that idea if you are ready to take the initiative. So how will your idea get funded? Once become a member of parliament, and all the MPs will get an opportunity to pitch their idea to the investment committee. And if your idea is really good and the investment committee approves of it, we'll be funding your idea. Okay, so some people are asking that, can I suggest an idea that can be used in the video? So I would request you to please go on the World Teen Parliament Facebook group or the Blub World's page of Instagram, and you'll see these amazing videos that children are posting so that you can learn from them. And you can then get inspired to give in your solutions. Okay, so when will you get the certificates? You will get the certificates once the Teen Parliament is established. So try participating as quickly as possible, post your videos. Most importantly, the complete process of participating to the World Teen Parliament is absolutely free. You do not have to pay anything to be a part or participate in the World Teen Parliament. So now it's time for a little bit more of learning. If you still have any questions, you can send us in, fill the contact us form, and our team will get back to you with the answers to those. So let me welcome today the faculty who will be teaching you about, telling you more about critical thinking, one very important skill that we want children to develop and understand, and how does this help them in their career, their futures, and also in the process of becoming a parliamentarian of the World Teen Parliament. A very warm welcome to Dr. Siddhart S, Assistant Professor of Philosophy at Sai University from Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. I would request him to please unmute himself. It's typically over to him, and you can start with the complete workshop on critical thinking. Over to Siddharth, sir. A very warm welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Gaur, for the warm words of welcome and the introduction. And hello, everybody. Good morning to you this Sunday morning. I am Siddharth, uh, the Assistant Professor in Philosophy at Sai University. And today, over the next half hour or so, I will be talking to you about critical thinking. I'm sure we have all thought about various things in life. We think about so many things every day from the morning till the end of the day. And even as we think, I'm sure we all also think critically. But we might be doing it, but it's good to reflect on what it is that we are doing. Often we do not really reflect on how we think, or are we thinking the right way, right? So this reflection is really important. And this broadly, the systematic way of how we think is a very initial definition of what critical thinking is. And the skill of critical thinking is especially crucial, not just for our daily activities, but any career that we take up, right? Because every career that we take up is going to involve some amount of thinking. It is going to involve judgments that we make. It is going to involve decisions that we have to take. It is going to require us to solve problems. And how do we do this? Of course, there are very specific tools that every problem or every judgment we will have to make, often technical questions that pertain to a particular problem. But apart from all this, even as we engage with this technical knowledge, there is this very generic, so to say, as not a generic skill, but a skill that spans across various problems, across sectors, across whatever we do. And this skill is critical thinking. So, my aim in this presentation is going to be to unpack this idea of critical thinking. I mean, it is something that we have all done to various extent. Unpack this and identify four important aspects of critical thinking, right? And then, in the process of unpacking and understanding what critical thinking is, hopefully, you will all be able to appreciate how we can what is the purpose of critical thinking and how you can use it in various aspects of one's life, and specifically for you at the task at hand when you become a member of the World Teen Parliament, or when you're making a pitch as to what it is that you would like, what is the initiative that you would like to take, how can you use critical thinking in it. um, so just a minute. There is a brief presentation I have. Let me just start sharing it. Okay. Now, just think about what comes to your mind when I say critical thinking, right? Can you all maybe briefly think, and it will be great if you can all we can tell it. But I think since there is a lot of you, maybe some of you can post what comes to your mind on the YouTube chat. But often, some of the responses that one gets is that critical thinking involves making judgments. Critical thinking involves analysis. Critical thinking involves problem solving. Of course, all of these are important aspects of critical thinking. But I think the first and most important aspect is that critical thinking, since it's a systematic way to think, involves what we can call as reasoning. So that is really the first point that I wanted to make, that critical thinking always involves reasoning. We all know what reasoning is to some extent, but let me unpack it a little bit further for you. When I say thinking involves reasoning, the key import of this idea is that when we have to think about anything, we need to look for adequate reasons. Now, let's take a very, very simple example. At conversation, I'm sure that you all had with your friends. Think of any one particular actor that you particularly like, right? I mean, I'm sure you have all discussed who's a better actor, who's an actor you like from either movies or web shows or whatever it is. But if someone had to ask you, why do you like this actor? Do you really think that this actor is a good actor? And then how would you convince that person? I think the most intuitive way would be to give reasons for why you think somebody is a good actor. You might say that she is a good actor because she takes up a variety of roles. Or you might say that she's a good actor because she emotes, she shows emotions very well. Or somebody might say, oh, I like this actor really because my brother or sister said that she is a good actor, right? I mean, whatever your responses are, when we are thinking and responding to questions, or in some sense solving some problems, what we are doing is we are giving reasons. And that is the first aspect that we need to recognize about thinking or critical thinking, is that thinking involves reasons. And hence, when we have to think critically about any problem or any issue, what we need to do is we need to look for adequate and proper reasons, right? When you have to do some action, when you have to act, what do you have to do? You have to think for reasons as to which is the best course of action. Or if you have to form a belief about anything, you need to think for adequate and proper reasons whether this is the right thing to believe. Or if there are 10 possible solutions for a problem, what do you need to do? How do you decide between them? We need to look for which is the reasons as to why one we could choose one solution over the other. So this is really the first important aspect, that, and in fact the central aspect of thinking, that it involves reasoning. Now, of course, reasoning is a very, very vast topic. And of course, there are various rules of reasoning and norms of reasoning. And those are slightly detailed for me to get into in this session. But if you think about it, you can all think of such rules of reasoning, such norms of reasoning. For example, a very, very simple rule that we all follow in everyday life, but it's good to make it explicit, that something cannot be both true and false at the same time, right? If you don't change the meanings of words involved, something cannot be, it cannot be the case that it is both raining and not raining at the same time, right? We need to, that is a rule of reasoning. For example, if I have to decide whether I want to go out or not, I look out of the window and see if it's raining, and then reason that because it's raining I cannot go out, right? And while doing this, there are some rules of reasoning that you follow. First, one of the important rules is it cannot be both true or false. And second is, if it is raining, you will not like to go out. And because it's raining, in this case, you're not going out, right? If so, there is some rule like if A implies B and B implies C, then A implies C. I mean, these are very simple rules of reasoning we follow, and there are more detailed rules. I'd all urge you all to look up on what are some of the rules of reasoning, rules of logic, how do that are involved, and I'm not getting into that over here. But the key takeaway here is that thinking always involves reasoning, And when we have to think about anything, when we have to think about what are the best solutions, what is the actions to take, etc., we need to think of reasons. That is what we need to do when we have to critically think. That is the first aspect. Now, let's get to the second aspect of critical thinking. Whenever we reason, we do not just reason out of the blue. It is not just that we. What actually happens is we always reason based on certain assumptions. Now, for example, take the consider the example I just gave you as to okay, I say that a particular actress is someone who acts very well, and if someone were to ask you why do you say so? What is your reason for that? You say that okay, this actress takes up very different kinds of roles, and hence this actress is a very good actress. But then somebody were to ask you, so what? So what if she takes up various roles? Why does that make it a good actress? And then here you realize that your reasoning is always based on certain assumptions, right? Here you're basing it on the assumption that if somebody does a variety of roles, they are a good actor or an actress. But then somebody can ask you, so what? Why is this assumption true? So critical thinking, the second point that I want to make is that reasoning involves assumptions and critical thinking involves identifying and questioning these assumptions. Now, by questioning, it does not mean we reject the assumption. Rather, we evaluate them once again. In this case, it was a very simple assumption that you made that anybody who takes up a variety of roles is a good actor or an actress. But then, while we base our reasoning on this assumption, critical thinking requires us to identify this explicitly to understand that, oh, this is the assumption based on which I'm reasoning, and then question them. And then ask yourself, okay, I've been using this assumption, but does it make sense? Is it a valid assumption to make? Can there be other assumptions based on which I can reason whether a person is a good actor? For example, another assumption could be that if the person puts in a lot of hard work, right? Or if the person has come up after a lot of struggle, that's what makes a person a good actor. And that's why I like that actor. Now you have two different assumptions. On the one hand, you have the assumption that somebody who does a lot of different roles is a good actor. On the other hand, you have the assumption that somebody who has come through a struggle is a good actor. Now, how do you decide between these two assumptions? Of course, you need to use reasoning for that, but even before that, it requires us to acknowledge and identify that reasoning involves assumptions. So, whenever, for example, you take up an initiative, identify a problem in the world, and then you propose how do you want to tackle this problem, you need to use reason. And when you reason, you will reason based on certain assumptions. So you need to justify those assumptions as well, identify them and say that, okay, I want to tackle, say, for example, the issue of waste disposal in a city, right? And often in cities, that is a big problem. How do you collect the waste from various houses, various industries, various factories, and how do you dispose them? That is the issue that you want to address. And then you say, this a particular method is how I'm going to address this issue. You need to give reasons, but when you reason, you'll say that it will be based on assumptions, and you need to make those assumptions explicit and say that, okay, this is my starting point, and this is a good starting point because for whatever reasons. So this is the second point that I wanted to make, that reasoning always involves assumptions, and it is important that you identify these assumptions, question these assumptions, because unless you question them, you will not know whether you are making the right assumptions or not. And hence, critical thinking requires you to question these assumptions and then decide, okay, this is a good assumption I can make. I want to take this step to address the issue of urban waste management because this is a good assumption to make, right? So this is the second aspect of critical thinking that I wanted to share with you all. Just quickly, let me see if there are any questions that you people have posted in the YouTube. Okay, let's get back to this. Okay. The third let's try to expand this window. Just a minute. Okay. The third sort of aspect of critical thinking that I want to highlight for you all is that critical thinking is not a skill that you develop in isolation. Of course, critical thinking involves reasoning, and you need to develop your skills of reasoning and identify what are the assumptions that reasoning is based on. But you also need to acknowledge that critical thinking is dependent on other skills and abilities. It is not a skill that you develop in isolation. Now, for example, we said that okay, whenever we reason, reason based on certain assumptions, right? For example, when you identify, when you say that the issue I want to address is urban waste management, you're basing it on the assumption that urban waste management is a serious issue, correct? No, sir. What are the other assumptions from which you could address that issue? And you need to be able to imagine these other assumptions. For example, you might say, okay, the most important issue to address the issue to address this problem of urban waste management is to ensure that waste is collected daily, and that is an administrative issue. The city's corporation has to ensure that that the waste is collected regularly. Suppose that is the solution that you want to propose. On the other hand, there could be another possible solution, right? Somebody might say it is not just the city, the corporation's responsibility, but it is each of us responsibility. We need to ensure that we properly dispose the waste. And hence, what is important is increasing the awareness of citizens. Now we see that there are two possible solutions to the problem, and to reason as to which of this is better, you need to start from different assumptions. This requires us to develop an imagination of the various possibilities, right? How can we imagine various possibilities and the various assumptions based on which we can reason? And this requires not just the ability to reason, but other faculties, other skills, such as the skill of imagination. And not only does it require the skill of imagination, it requires us to have good awareness about the various situations in the world, various developments that are happening in the world, because these problems are all the problems that people are already discussing about. You need to be generally aware of all these things to understand, okay, how are other countries doing it? How is another city which is managing this waste very well doing? So you need to be aware that, okay, there are cities which manage waste very well, right? So you see that critical thinking requires not just the ability to reason, but also other similar skills or skills that are interrelated skills, such as the faculty of imagination and the faculty of having good general awareness and things like that. So this is the third point that I have wanted to share with you all, that critical thinking is not a skill that develops in isolation. Rather, it is something that you develop in relation along with various other related skills, such as the faculty of imagination and having good general knowledge or good general awareness. Now, let me quickly summarize what we have discussed so far. The first aspect of critical thinking is that critical thinking involves reasoning. When you want to think critically about anything, you need to look for proper reasons of how do you address a problem of the issue at hand. And this you can do whenever, even if you read a newspaper article or an article on the web, when somebody says, okay, this is the policy that the government should have taken, or this is a policy which the government should not have taken. Whatever they say, they are of course thinking and telling you something, but you have to think critically about what they are saying. You need to look for the reasons that they are giving. And this reasoning is often based on assumptions. And you need to identify the assumptions that these people are giving for any solution that they propose. For example, if they say this policy is to be followed, what are the assumptions based on which they are reasoning, right? And to do this, you need to be generally aware and develop a faculty of imagination, and there are various other related skills. This brings me to the fourth and final aspect that I wanted to identify, is that of course you need these other skills, but it is not just skills that are important for critical thinking. You also need to develop certain attitudes, certain frames of minds, right? For example, you cannot think of all possible solutions by yourself, right? You need to be able to talk to people, you need to be able to discuss with people, you need to be able to listen to others, you need to have an open mind, you need to be willing to listen to criticism about your own views, and it's only then that you'll be able to improve your own views, your own reasons, right? And similarly, you need to have the attitude of curiosity. Unless you're curious to think about various things, you may not be able to think of the various possibilities and hence not think critically about an issue. So, this is really the fourth point that I wanted to make, that critical thinking requires you to develop certain attitudes. For example, the attitude of curiosity, an attitude of openness to discussion, an attitude of healthy skepticism. And now, what do I mean by healthy skepticism? It means that you listen to others, you take in their views, accept their views, but you do not just accept them blindly. You take in their views, you hear their views, and then you evaluate whether these views make sense. Are they giving proper reasons? You question their views and accept them only if they seem valid to you. That's what I mean by healthy skepticism. You need to be open, but also question and accept them only if they're reasonable to you. Apart from all this, all of this needs to be guided by an ethical framework. You also need to have a framework of understanding of okay, what is good and what is not good, right? And then your reasoning should be guided by this ethical framework. And hence, this is the final aspect that I wanted to say, that critical thinking involves reasoning, it involves following norms and rules of reasoning, it involves identifying certain assumptions that your reasoning is based on. It requires you to develop other skills such as the faculty of imagination, etc. But it also requires you to develop certain attitudes, an attitude of humility, an attitude of curiosity, an attitude of openness. See, this whole aspect, why do we need a parliament to discuss various issues, right? Why can't we just listen to one person? Why do we need a diversity of views? Why do we need so many people? Why do we? The reason is that all this critically thinking about an issue cannot happen in isolation, because any solution, to think of various possibilities, various ways of reasoning about an issue, requires discussion. And as we discuss, the way we reason itself transforms when we listen to other people's views, other people's points, other people's criticism about our views. Right? And when you also criticize and engage with other people's views, you also contribute to their thinking, right? That's why we have this whole concept of a parliament. That's why even in a country we have elections, we have people representatives from every small area, every district or every constituency, or further if you go to local elections, every panchayat or every town, we have these people. Because and what do they do in a parliament? They all get together and they all discuss the issues facing the country. Why don't we just listen to one person? That's because no one person can think critically in isolation, right? Everybody needs to give their contributions. Everybody needs to share how they are thinking, their reasons on what are the issues to be tackled and how do we tackle them. And it's only by listening to everybody with this attitude of openness, an attitude of healthy skepticism, an attitude of humility, that we can improve our own views and think better, right? And this is the final aspect of critical thinking that I wanted to highlight. So again, to quickly summarize, what are the four aspects of critical thinking that I have discussed here? First, critical thinking involves reasoning. So when we want to think critically about anything, think, we need to look for good reasons to form an opinion, to a solution or anything. And critical thinking or reasoning always involves assumptions. So critical thinking requires us to identify those assumptions, question them, and accept them if they are acceptable, or reject them if we think they are not good assumptions. Third, critical thinking is not something we develop in isolation. You need to develop other related skills. For example, the faculty of imagination, the skill to be generally aware and develop good general knowledge. And finally, critical thinking requires you to develop certain attitudes, such as the attitude of humility, the attitude of openness, the attitude of the willingness to engage with other people, discuss your views, and the willingness to revise your own views if you think the other people's point is more valid. Okay, with that, I will. This brings me to the end of what I wanted to share. I see that there are some questions that you've all been posing. For example, one says, I have one question regarding critical thinking. When everyone is going to primary sections, how will be tackled to students at that level in very shortly? Because first to fourth grade. Okay, I think the question is, how do we teach critical thinking to very small children? See, it needs you need to understand that critical thinking is not like an app. It's not something we just download and it starts working. And no skill is like that, right? How did you all learn? How did you all develop your skill in, say, to play cricket or to play football or to sing or to dance or to act or to cook or any such activity? You of course learn some basic. Somebody tells you, okay, this is the rules of football, this is the basics of cooking, this is that music has 7 notes or so many notes and things like that. People give you some basic information, just like how I have told you now about critical thinking. But the most important thing to develop the skill is to keep doing it, to keep practicing, right? So even for small children, you teach them by making them think in their everyday things. For example, when you teach them about some subject, say you tell them a story, you then ask them after that, okay, in this story, why did this character, why did this person do like this? And encourage them to share their understanding by giving reasons in response to questions. That is just one way. So the short answer is you can teach it for to children, to small children as well as others by making them do it, by making them practice it. The second question that somebody is asking me is, why is critical thinking important? See, critical thinking is important because to take any decision, to solve any problem, how are you going to know that this is the right solution, this is the right approach to a problem? Of course, you need to think about it, but what do you do when you think? You need to look for reasons, right? And then critical thinking is, this brings it to for critical thinking, because when you look for reasons, you need to look for the right reasons, right? You don't look for some reason, but you want to look at the right reason, because it's the reason that's going to help you reach a solution. And hence critical thinking is important. And now, especially with a lot of information on the internet, you're going to get a lot of views. How do you know how are you going to, which view you're going to accept and which you're going to reject? You need to engage with them. You need to look for reasons as to why something is right or wrong, and for that critical thinking is important. Somebody asking, isn't critical thinking based on facts as well? Of course, critical thinking is based on facts, but in fact, it is even, it comes prior to facts. How do you know something is a fact or not? Right? You know it only when you reason about it. That's what we do. For example, in when we study science, we do some experiments, we collect some data, but then you do an analysis based on the data, right? You reason based on the data to establish that, okay, this is the fact, this is what Earth's gravity is. You reason based on the from the data that you collected to establish it as a fact. So thinking and critical thinking and reasoning goes hand in hand with the activity of establishing what is a fact or not. Somebody asking, is critical thinking the solution to everything? Of course not. There is no one single solution to everything at all, right? But critical thinking can help you look for solutions to various things. There is no one solution to everything at all. At least that's what I think. So critical thinking is an approach that we can take towards uh, solving various problems. And critical thinking is not one simple thing. While these are four aspects, you can see that these four aspects are very general aspects. For example, what is reasoning and how do we reason itself is an extremely vast area of study, and there is no single way of reasoning. There are so many different ways of reasoning. There are so many different ways of knowing about the world using reason. And that's why you have so many disciplines, so many subjects. You have sciences, you have social sciences, and etc. It's only because the ways of reasoning are vast and diverse. Okay, let me look at some of The other questions that we ask, how can we use critical thinking for participating in the World Teen Parliament? Thank you. That's a very, I think, a more immediate concern for a lot of you. Now, for example, the World Teen Parliament requires you to identify a particular social issue or a problem faced by us and then propose a solution. Now, what do you have to do? You have to convince others that, okay, this is a problem that we have to take seriously. And this is a solution that is a good solution for this problem. How do you convince them? And you, of course, need to give reasons as for something that, okay, this is a serious problem. This is a problem that the world has to take up seriously. And for that, you need to give reasons first, even to identify a problem. Second, to say that this is the right solution, again, how do you convince? You need to give reasons for that. And when you give reasons, you better give good reasons for it. It's only then the other people are going to get convinced. And to do that, you need to think critically. And for you to develop good reasons, how do you reason about a problem? You need to do all this. You need to be open. You need to hear lots of other views. You need to probably read about certain things on the internet or certain books. And then when you read, you do not just accept it. You need to look for why are they saying the things they are saying. Is it a good reason for me to when I'm proposing a solution in the World Teen Parliament? Right, and for that you need to hear a diversity of views, and that's why all these things that I spoke about critical thinking comes to the fore. Okay, I'm sorry, someone is saying I need to be a little louder. I'm sorry if I wasn't very clear. I will be a little louder from now on. Um, Again, there's another question: is critical thinking important for school children? It is important for everybody, right? In school, that's when you prepare for uh, entering the general world as an adult, and as part of your training it is important that you learn to think critically. Again, as I said, critical thinking is not something you just sit in one session and learn. It is something you practice over the years, and it's good if you start thinking it, doing it as a child in the school. It's only then and with years of practice that you become good. That's when you become a better thinker. That's when you become a better problem solver. That's when you better become a better citizen, and that's when you become a better friend. That's when you can help your people around you. So critical thinking is something, not something that you just learn in school. Of course it's important you learn in school, and you apply it in your everyday life as well. uh, Someone's asking me, what are some career that are heavily based on critical thinking? See, again, unlike say engineering, say software programming, or medicine, or law, which are all very specific skills and specific training. If you study engineering, you become an engineer, or that's the hope. Unlike that, critical thinking is not related to any one particular career, or that's my understanding. Rather, it is a skill that you need to have that is valued in across careers. Say, for example, you're an engineer. When you're an engineer and you're working, say, for an IT firm or in a manufacturing firm, you're not just applying technical issues. You're not just applying the rules and theories of programming or rules and theories of mechanics and machine design and things like that. Even to do all that, you need to think critically about the various issues that come up, right? And critical thinking involves, okay, when do I use this particular knowledge that I have learned? When do I use this particular skill that I have learned? You need to know that. And all that requires critical thinking. To answer your question, critical thinking is not focused on any one career, it is used across careers. And it is perhaps clearer in certain uh, career paths. For example, if you're a manager, any managerial role requires you to think critically about various issues every day, because you need to take a lot of decisions. Similarly, if you become a journalist, what does a journalist do? A journalist reasons in every article that they write, either it's a report that they're doing or an opinion piece, they need to reason. So there it becomes a little more explicit. And of course, lawyers, that's what they do. They make arguments based on law and convince people that either this is within the laws or against the laws and things like that. Or if you become a politician, you become a legislator, you need to make laws for the country. So these are all some careers that in which critical thinking comes to the fore, but even more specialized careers such as engineering, medicine, and things like that. Critical thinking is very, very crucial. Think of it like communication skills. You need to have good communication skills for all careers, right? Similarly, critical thinking is something that is critical for every career that you might take up. Uh, what are some more examples of critical thinking? See, there are, I mean, examples are they're everywhere for critical thinking, including, for example, some of the decision that all of you might have to take. Which university do I choose? How do you take the decision? One, of course, you can just listen to what everybody says. But even as you listen, how do you know whose opinion you need to consider? You need to look for reasons. What are the reasons that they're giving for saying that this course, this university is better, right? For that, you need to engage critically with this question. This is just a very real uh, issue. I mean, in our everyday life, we need to think about very small problems like, okay, do I need to watch this movie or that movie? Even that small thing, you can think critically. Of course, these are very small examples, but I'll think a little bit more. How do you manage the waste disposal in your area? Right, that is a big problem which every city faces, or even at a very, very large level, which how do you manage distribute vaccines to a country that is as large as India? There can be various strategies. How do you decide between that? Of course, you use knowledge from economists. You need principles of management and things like that. I mean, these are more technical knowledge, but once you have all that, you need to reason based on it and take a decision. So that involves critical thinking. These are all examples of areas where we uh, need critical thinking. Okay, as a parent, how can I teach my child critical thinking? This is a question. And I think apart from schools and teachers, uh, I think even within homes as a parent, it's the most important way in which you can teach is to encourage them to reason, look for reasons before they take a decision, right? And give them reasons when you ask them to do something or not do something. When you tell them, okay, don't eat this particular diet or don't eat this particular thing, you can always give them to some extent, some reasons of, okay, why do you say this thing is not good for your health? Why do you say this is good for your health? Or if you want to encourage them to take up a sport or encourage them to take up a particular skill, an art form or singing or dancing, encourage them to giving them some reasons and ask them to reflect on what they are learning and things like that. So as I said, critical thinking is a skill, and like every skill, it develops and one becomes better at it through practice. And by encouraging that practice, you can encourage them to become critical thinkers. Uh, then there's a question: how can we apply critical thinking in education? I assume this question means in school teaching, learning, how can we apply how can we uh, bring in this aspect of critical thinking? Again, every um, aspect in the curriculum, for example, when you're teaching something or when students are being asked to learn something, you can encourage them to think more critically by asking them to think of their own reasons. For example, when we study history, I mean, we often sometimes think of history as studying history as just remembering certain things, but actually it's not. It's asking for an explanation. Why did this particular change happen at this particular time? Why did this king's kingdom fail? Or why did this king succeed? What are we doing? We are asking for reasons, right? And when we read about all this, it's important to think critically about even what we're reading in textbooks. Okay, this is the explanation that this textbook gives me, but uh, can I think a little bit more on, okay, is this really valid? Why are they saying what they are saying? So we can apply critical thinking even in our everyday subjects. Again, sorry, I'll be a little louder. I hope I'm better now. Any further questions? There might have been some earlier. Someone has asked, what are these assumptions? The second important aspect that I said, it's an important aspect of critical thinking. Let me give an example. Now you want to decide if I have to go out to the shop or not, right? You look out of the window and then you want to see whether it's raining or not. And then you will think that, okay, it's raining, I will not go. But what is the underlying rule based on which you are taking this decision? The assumption is, if it is not raining, I will go. If it is raining, I will not go. Right? This is the assumption that you are making, the rule that you are going to use to make a decision. And then you look out of the window and then you see that it's raining. And now we are applying the rule. It's raining. If it is raining, I will not go. And hence you don't go. I mean, all of this, we don't explicitly think it, but this is how we often uh, engage with the world, so to say. This is how we act. Now we need to, when I say we need to identify these assumptions, we need to identify how we are reasoning. What are these unsaid rules we are following? These assumptions can be thought of as unsaid rules, and this comes up everywhere every time we reason. When I say, okay, this, I want to be an engineer. Now you think, okay, why do you say you want to be an engineer, right? Often that is based on certain unsaid rule that you have. For example, I want to be an engineer because I'm interested in machines, right? Or somebody might say, oh, I want to be an engineer because everybody around me says I have to be an engineer. At least you have to understand why you're taking a decision. Why are you reasoning in a particular way? And these are often based on these unsaid rules, which you can think of as assumption. And critical thinking requires us to identify these unsaid rules or assumptions. Often their unsaid rules may be right as well, but it's important to reflect on them, identify them, and then decide. Okay, we have one more. Sir, what is critical thinking required certain attitudes? So I think the question is, why do I say that critical thinking requires certain attitudes, and what are these attitudes? See, when I say certain attitudes, critical thinking requires us to reason about things and look for adequate reasons for any decision, for any problem. And it's not possible to just think of it alone, thinks it alone, and uh, think of all these reasons just like that, right? It requires us to go and collect information, talk to others, understand from various different perspectives. And all this we will do only if we develop certain attitudes. For example, only if you're curious. Otherwise, we might not even find the motivation to go and look for solutions, right? So that's what I mean. We need to develop certain attitudes, and we'll have to be willing to talk to others. Often, we might get very angry if somebody says what we are saying is wrong, right? So, but on the other hand, critical thinking requires us to understand why the other person is saying we are wrong. Try to understand their perspective, not take it personally, not take it as a, when somebody says we are wrong, not take it as a personal attack. Rather, look at it as a learning opportunity. Try to understand why they are saying that we are wrong. Look for the reasons as to why they say we are wrong, and then take it as an opportunity for us to evaluate ourselves. We need not keep doing it all the time, but at least the first time when somebody says, we need to seriously consider. And if we know for that the person is say, I mean, simply finding mistakes, we know it for sure because we have already considered them seriously, and now based on past, we know that somebody is finding mistakes just for finding mistakes. We at least know that based on certain justification, right? And all this requires certain attitudes, attitude of being open to discussion, the attitude of curiosity. And that's why I meant when I said that critical thinking requires certain, the development of certain attitudes. Okay, I think we are almost out of time.
Thank you so much, Siddharth, sir, for this amazing session on critical thinking.
Mm.
And yes, I think one thing that everybody or all the teenagers who are here should learn is that whenever you are criticized, take that criticism positively and not with a lot of personal attention to it, or never take it personally. So thank you so much, Siddharji, for taking that amazing session for us. A very big thank you to our supporter, Sai University, for this session today morning. So thank you, everybody, all the students, teachers, parents, and all these amazing teenagers who took out the time to be here to attend the orientation session come workshop of the World Teen Parliament. Every Sunday on this very time, you can come back on the YouTube channel of Blub World and you can find one new orientation session with one new skill being taught to you every Sunday at 11 a.m. Thank you so much for participating. If you want to stay updated with all the activities of World Teen Parliament, subscribe to the YouTube channel of Blub World and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you are, so that you keep getting all the updates and what all new is going on at Blub World and the World Teen Parliament. Once again, a very big thank you to Sai University for this amazing session on critical thinking. Thank you, everybody. It was an amazing interaction with all of you. Have a nice weekend and have an amazing Sunday. Thank you, people. Bye bye. Namaste.